Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're just going to briefly go over the restriction amounts if you're under your full retirement age and you're requesting benefits from the Social Security Administration. So we'll go over just a couple quick examples about how you can do the math basically to see if you'll be paid or not, or basically if you're making too much money to draw a benefit. So here we are again at Social Security's website. This is called the earnings tests. The earnings test, there's two different types of tests that can be applied. So if you scroll down to the bottom, you can see this is the middle one here is what we want. When they're talking about the lower amount, they're talking about from the time that you turn 62 up until the month before the calendar year of your full retirement age. Right? So if let's say you're born in the middle or the later of the year, like September as an example, and your full retirement age is something like, I don't know, 66 and 8 months, right? Realistically, even though you'll turn 66 in 1 year, you won't reach your full retirement age until the following calendar year, all right? So it would apply to you differently, and you want to pay attention to that. Okay, so again, what we're doing is we're looking at from 62 up until the calendar year before your full retirement age. So in 2024, the annual earnings test is $22,320. As I've said many times before, the way that you're going to look at this number, if you're a W-2 employee, Social Security is going to look at your gross wages, because essentially that's what gets reported to the IRS, and that's what you get credit for, right? So they're looking at your gross wages, which is the bigger part of your paycheck, or the full amount of your paycheck before any deductions come out. Okay, so it's basically not what you take home, unfortunately. So again, in 2024, it's $22,320. So my mouse is freaking out here. So here we go in the first scenario. I'm going to try and blow this up so we can just do one thing at a time. Sorry if that hurts your eyes. Okay, so in 2024, this is an example of the annual earnings test. Let's say that you're working a job where you're making $45,000 a year. Again, if you're a W-2 employee, Social Security is looking at your gross wages, right? So they would count all $45,000 of this. If you're self-employed or maybe a 1099 employee, then Social Security is going to look at your net profit. The reason for that is because let's say that you made $100,000 for the year as either a 1099 employee or your business as a self-employed person, and you have $80,000 in expenses. Let's say it's something with a lot of expenses, like landscaping, right? So you might make all of this money throughout the year, but you also have to pay for gas, maintenance on your equipment, maintenance on your vehicles that drive your equipment. Maybe you had to buy trailers and other maintenance items, things like that, oil, filters, all that good stuff, right? So you made a total of $100,000, but you had $80,000 in expenses. So basically, if you file your return that way with the IRS, and again, I'm not giving any tax information, this is just how it relates to Social Security. So if you file your return that way with the IRS, you're only paying you only pay Social Security and Medicare taxes on your net profit. So basically, if you claimed a loss, you made $100,000 and you wrote off $100,000, there's no profit there, which means that there's no tax burden for you. Okay, but if you do claim a profit, you're only getting credit for the profit and not the number before any of your deductions. Okay. So again, going back to the scenario, you have a job, you're making $45,000 a year. Let's assume that you're a W-2 employee. Okay, so we're going to count all $45,000 of this. Your restriction in 2024 is $22,320. So again, that's how much money you're allowed to make before it has any kind of negative impact on your benefits, meaning that if Social Security can pay you all of your checks for the year or not. All right, so the way that we factor this is we take $45,000 minus $22,320, and we get the difference, which is $22,680. For the purposes of this test and Social Security's policy, for every $2 that you go over this restriction, Social Security is only going to count half of it. Okay, so you take $22,680, divide by 2, and that gets you $11,340 in benefits that have to be withheld before Social Security can deposit a payment for you. Okay, so they're going to this much has to be, I don't want to say recouped because it was never supposed to be paid anyway, but they can't pay you until whatever your check equals adds up to this number. All right. So let's assume for the purpose of this video that your check is $1,700 a month, which is somewhere around the national average, give or take, let's say $100, $150. So if you take the difference, $11,340, and you divide it by your monthly amount, right? That's kind of the key word there, monthly amount. So if you know what your monthly amount is, just kind of insert it into this formula here. So again, 11,340 divided by 1,700, that comes out to 6.6 months. Social Security does not do any partial payments. It's all or nothing with them for a lot of different things, right? So they're going to round up to 7. Even if it was like 6.2, they're still going to round up to 7. All right. So for the first 7 months that they could pay you, not considering your work, now that's 7 months where they're not going to pay you because of your work. Okay, so in this example, let's say that your month of entitlement is January of 2024. Not thinking about your work, that means that your first payment would come in February, but because of your work, they have to withhold 7 checks. So that will be February, March, April, May, June, July, August. So that means that your first check should be around September of 2024, if that was your scenario, okay? Now, the more difficult one, I think that people, not more difficult, but people tend to be more confused about this, okay? So when you're filing your claim, whether it's for retirement or maybe widow's benefits, something like that, and to be clear, has nothing to do with disability. This is retirement, spouse, or survivor's benefits, okay? Specifically about survivor's benefits, this would be like a widow's benefit. So it's not related to disability in any way. Disability has different numbers that they go by. All right. It could also be a benefit for, let's say that you're maybe a minor child of somebody who's either receiving retirement benefits, or maybe you're a surviving child that's a minor of somebody, maybe your parent had passed away. There's still restrictions for kids. So if let's say you're in a situation where you have a spouse that passed away and you have a teenager, and you need the unfortunate reality is some people need their teenagers in that situation to go to work to help pay the mortgage or keep food on the table, whatever it might be. So if that's if that sounds like you or somebody you know in that position, and their kid is working and receiving Social Security benefits as a surviving child of somebody, they still have these same restrictions. All of this applies. So maybe you have a 16, 17-year-old, they go to school, come home, then maybe they go to work at the grocery store and they're a cashier, or they're, working carts in the parking lot, something like that, something part-time. This earnings test would still apply to them. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, there's 2 earnings tests. I would say this is the general or more frequently used one, significantly more frequently used. When I worked for Social Security, I applied this test more times than the other one. Okay, the second test, which can only be used the first calendar year that you're drawing benefits. Okay, I can't stress that enough. It's called the grace year. So it's the first calendar year that you're drawing Social Security benefits is the only time that the monthly earnings test can be applied. After the first calendar year, it's going to revert to the annual earnings test. You will not have an option about that. Okay? What should be done with these 2 tests or formulas, however you want to look at them, like when this would come up. So you're speaking with Social Security, and again, I recommend either in person or over the phone. Do not file online. Do not do it by mail. Okay, so in person or over the phone, you're speaking with the representative at Social Security. You're filing your claim. They ask you if you're working. You say yes. they should be looking at both of these to see which one benefits you more based off of your conversation in that moment. Okay, because in that moment, and now if you know that you're going to take another job or you're expecting to get a promotion or something like that, that can change things. So when you're filing your claim, you really want to have a good idea of your work situation. Are you currently working or not? Are you going to continue to work or not? If you're not going to continue to work, when is that going to happen? So do you have a stop date when you're officially done performing work, and when your last paycheck will be? Then you can dive into other things too. Some people get severance packages, which also count as wages because you have entered that agreement with the employer. So even though you're not technically working, you're still technically employed. And Social Security has policy on those things as well. But okay, so let's get in. I'm digressing here. So the monthly earnings test, again, it can only be used the first calendar year that you're drawing benefits, right? So if you start your benefits in, let's say, November of 23, then you only get to utilize this earnings test for November and December. That's it, right? So of 2023, and then it would revert to the annual earnings test in 2024. All right, so in this scenario one, we'll say, again, we're going to pretend that it's a W-2 job, so we're looking at all $45,000 in wages for the year. All right, so it's January. You go into the Social Security office. You're now, let's say, 63, okay? You tell them that you want to file a claim for retirement benefits. They ask you if you're working, you say yes. They ask you if you're going to stop working, you say no. I'm going to work all year. From January 1 to December 31st, you expect to make $45,000 in gross wages as a W-2 employee. If we take $45,000 and we divide it by 12 months in the year, that means that you're averaging $3,750 per year. Based on this, there is no payment due for the entire calendar year. And the reason being is because your restriction is $1,860. You cannot earn 1 penny more than that. If you, in any month, so if you were to do this, let's say that you filed the claim and for whatever reason the Social Security representative processed it, any month where you earn $1,860 and 1 penny or more, you are not supposed to be paid, and you'll probably get an overpayment letter the following year once the IRS has your information. Social Security will send you the letter saying, it appears that we overpaid you. You told us you were going to make $45,000. We need more information about your work. At that point, they're probably going to request your pay stubs, and they're going to piece the entire year together, right? So if you get paid on a weekly basis, they're looking for 52 pay stubs. If you get paid on a bi-weekly basis, they're probably looking for 26, 27 pay stubs, right? And it's the burden of proof lies on you, so you can't just say, I don't have it. They're going to look at all that. So again, and it's real quick to see. It's going to show up on your earnings record. You made $45,000. You told them when you filed your claim that you weren't going to make more than $1,860. If you do $1,860 over 12 months, it's going to come up with the annual earnings restriction of $22,320. At that point, they're going to see that you're way over, and they're going to say, what happened? And then you're going to be overpaid. So again, in scenario one, if you're working all year, you're going to make $45,000, or insert whatever the number is going to be, and you go 1 penny over $1,860, you're not supposed to be paid for whatever month that happens in. And if it happens for multiple months, that means that you're overpaid for multiple months, and you'll owe that money back. Okay. Scenario two, which is the appropriate scenario for the monthly earnings test. This is really where it benefits a person. Okay. So again, you're making $45,000 for the year, but you plan on reducing your work or stopping your work, reducing your work below $1,860 a month, or stopping your work completely. Let's say that you stopped working in June of 2024, right? So if we take the amount from the first scenario, $3,750 a month you're averaging, and you stop working, let's say, the last day in June, so January through June, that's 6 months, that's $22,500. Now you see, you've already gone over the monthly earnings, or I'm sorry, the annual earnings test based off of that. So If you're making $45,000 a year, let's say you're on a salary working from January through the end of June, your gross is $37.50. That puts you at $22.5. And remember, there's no partial withholding. So if Social Security tried to use this, the annual restriction against you, they're going to have to withhold one check because you're a couple $100 over this number here, right? So that means that that's 1 month of withholding. But if you told them that you plan on reducing your work, and let's say that your month of entitlement was instead of January, it was June, which is probably what I would recommend because you're going to end up with a higher monthly check. Now you have no withholding, right? So that wouldn't be correct either, actually. You would stop working. I've confused myself. If you stopped working at the end of June, your earliest month of entitlement would be July at that point, is what I should have said. Because now you're below 1860. So again, if you're doing part-time work, that's fine, as long as you're under 1860. Or if you stop working, then obviously that's fine as well. And that would mean that your due payments for the back half of the year, and you would get 6 checks, versus this way, you're getting nothing, okay? So again, even if you bump this number, let's say $145,000. Same scenario. You're on salary, you make $145,000. Just making an extreme example because sometimes that helps people out a little more. So $145,000 divided by 12 months, that's $12,000. Okay, same situation. You're working through the end of June, times it by 6 months. That's $72,500 in gross wages that you made from January 1 through the last day of June. Then let's say your month of entitlement is July. Although you have made $72,000, you stopped working. So Social Security is not going to look at, using this way, the monthly earnings test. Social Security is not going to consider what you earned before your benefits started. A lot of people use that type of terminology as well, or verbiage, whatever you want to call it. But that's when they don't count what you made. If it was prior to your benefits starting, and again, it's usually a situation where you have reduced your work or you stop working completely. So in this scenario, you would have already made $72,000 for 2024. Then you're going to be, then at that point, your month of entitlement would be July, and your first check would be in August, and you'll get paid for the rest of the year, basically. All right. I hope this video was able to help you. I did digress there on a few different things, but I try and spread those. It's really all in the little details with Social Security. All those little tidbits of information very much matter. So I appreciate you watching the video. I hope it helped, especially if you're looking into filing this year.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your bell notifications so that you're always notified whenever I'm posting new content. If you have a question or want me to cover another topic, please leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to address it as soon as possible. Thank you so much and have a fantastic day.